These are the final images of her at the bar, where everything still looked like an ordinary night. No one knew that just a few hours later, Natalee Holloway would vanish without a trace, and this moment would become the last time the world ever saw her alive. What followed were long, exhausting days of investigation. Police searched every beach, every road, and questioned dozens of witnesses, but every lead ended in a dead end. Statements kept changing, and there was almost no physical evidence. Despite a massive effort and intense international attention, the search for Natalee Holloway remained stalled, as if the truth was always just within reach, yet never quite grasped. Recently, our channel has been struggling with a noticeable drop in engagement. Videos that we invest a great deal of time, effort, and passion into sometimes fail to reach a wider audience. Even so, we continue working every day to create better, more polished, and more meaningful content. Content that truly deserves your time. If you find value in what we do, even a single like, a subscription, or a share means more to us than you can imagine. It's what keeps us going. Natalee Holloway was born on October 21st, 1986.
Natalee Holloway was your all-American girl. She was beautiful, she was vivacious, she had a fantastic personality.
Who's our special guest today?
It's Hootie.
Hootie Hoo Holloway.
Hi, friend.
Natalee wanted to be a doctor. And I always remember being a little jealous of that because I never really had a clear understanding of what I wanted to do. And she just had the most beautiful smile.
When she was 7 years old, her parents, Beth and Dave Holloway, divorced, leaving Beth as a single mother for 7 years before she remarried Jug Twitty, a well-known businessman in Alabama.
Her parents had separated, but she fought through it.
The family lived in Mountain Brook, an affluent suburb in Alabama, known for its upscale neighborhoods and predominantly white population. When they moved there, the Holloway family was warmly welcomed, and as Natalee entered high school, everything seemed set for a fresh start. At 18 years old, Natalee Holloway joined 124 classmates and 7 chaperones as they prepared for a 6-hour flight across the Caribbean to celebrate their graduation.
Natalee went to Aruba with her classmates. This was their graduation present. She'd worked hard, and I thought she deserved it.
This luxurious senior trip had become something of a tradition at her high school, located in a wealthy suburb of Birmingham, Alabama. On May 26, 2005, Beth Holloway drove her daughter to a friend's house, where she would later be taken to the airport to board a private flight to an island off the coast of Venezuela. The private plane landed at Queen Beatrix International Airport in Aruba on May 26, marking the beginning of the trip. The group had planned to stay at Holiday Inn Resort Aruba, located in the northwestern part of the island, about 17 minutes from the capital. And just like that, the celebration began. Witnesses later reported that the students partied heavily and drank excessively, to the point that the Holiday Inn announced they would not be welcomed back the following year. Some classmates recalled that Natalee had been drinking enough to miss breakfast on 2 consecutive mornings. However, her mother insisted that her daughter had no history of heavy drinking, admitting instead Natalee was very intelligent, but also very naive. Now, take a look at this image of Natalee Holloway. It was taken on the beach in Aruba on the morning of May 29, 2005, the final day of the trip. That evening, the night she disappeared, Holloway went to a casino inside the Holiday Inn. Surveillance footage captured her sitting near an unidentified man. Later, witnesses remembered seeing her at a nearby bar and restaurant called Carlos and Charlie's, where she was talking to another unidentified man, before leaving with him around midnight. This was the last confirmed sighting of Natalee Holloway before she vanished. The next morning, when she failed to show up for the return flight to the United States, her friends checked her hotel room. Inside, they found her passport and luggage, as if she had been fully prepared to leave, but had suddenly disappeared without a trace. Her mother, Beth Holloway, was immediately notified of her daughter's disappearance.
Beth gets a call, and it's one of the chaperones calling from Aruba, saying that they were supposed to come back today, but Natalee didn't show up.
That was the call that changed my life forever.
That same day, she, her husband, and several family friends boarded a private jet and arrived in Aruba just 12 hours after Natalee was reported missing.
When Beth Holloway got the call that her daughter hadn't come back,
she immediately made arrangements to fly down to Aruba and start figuring it out.
Arriving on the island late on the night of May 30th, Beth went straight to the Holiday Inn, where Natalee had stayed for the previous 5 days, hoping to find any clue that might lead her to her daughter. After searching throughout the hotel and asking around if anyone had seen or recognized Natalee, Beth, along with the casino manager, reviewed the security footage from the casino taken the night before. The footage shows Holloway sitting right next to a young man, later identified by hotel staff as Joran van der Sloot, 18 years old at the time.
That young man is Joran van der Sloot.
Some witnesses also stated that the man Holloway had been dancing with at Carlos and Charlie's earlier that same day was the same person Joran van der Sloot.
Joran van der Sloot was born in the Netherlands and moved to Aruba. He was the youngest of 3 boys. He was a very good student because his mom was a teacher, so they were a well-known family.
48 hours after Natalee Holloway disappeared, her father, Dave Holloway, secretly flew to Aruba. He had already prepared himself for the worst. Later, he would reflect on his grief.
I just kept it to myself, but I knew that I was going to Aruba for recovery because I knew that after 24, 48 hours, he hadn't heard from him. It's not a good situation.
This grainy, overexposed surveillance footage became the first and most crucial lead the Holloway family had, after obtaining Joran's address through some of his friends near a lighthouse.
The next morning, Beth goes to see the police and formally report Natalee missing.
At that time, Holloway had not yet been officially classified as a missing person, as it typically required 48 hours for a case to be recognized as such. This legal barrier clearly affected the initial response of the Aruban authorities, with many present at the time describing them as slow or indifferent, believing Holloway would soon reappear. Nevertheless, when they located Joran at his home in the nearby town of Nord, he was quickly questioned about what he knew regarding Holloway's whereabouts, but it soon became apparent that his statements were unreliable, to put it mildly. At first, Joran van der Sloot denied even knowing who Natalee Holloway was, but when he realized that the police already had witness accounts and surveillance evidence, he began to tell his version of events. He claimed that after meeting Holloway at the casino, she had invited him to go to Carlos and Charlie's later that day. Initially, he refused, saying the place was always boring on Sundays. But eventually, he changed his mind and agreed to go. That night, Joran and his 2 friends, Deepak Kalpoe and Satish Kalpoe, drove to Carlos and Charlie's to meet Holloway, where they drank and danced throughout the night. According to most accounts, by the time Holloway was ready to leave around midnight, she was heavily intoxicated. According to Joran and the Kalpoe brothers, Holloway got into their car. However, it remains unclear whether she believed they were taking her back to the hotel or if she simply intended to continue spending time with them. Inside the car, Deepak Kalpoe was driving, as the vehicle belonged to him. Satish sat in the front passenger seat, while Joran and Holloway were seated in the back. Most sources indicate that Holloway asked Joran to take her back to the hotel, and he agreed. But from this point on, his story began to fall apart. Initially, he claimed that the 3 of them drove Holloway straight back to the hotel. He said that when they arrived, she stumbled out of the car but refused his help. They also claimed that as Holloway was walking toward the hotel, they saw a man dressed like a security guard approaching her, after which they drove away. But later, this version changed. Joran stated that they had not taken Holloway directly to the hotel, but had instead stopped near a lighthouse. The Kalpoe brothers later added that Joran and Holloway had been kissing in the back seat. Despite the constantly shifting details in Joran's statements, both he and the Kalpoe brothers consistently maintained that Holloway was still alive the last time they saw her. As tensions grew between the Aruban police and the family back in Alabama, authorities decided to expand the search to the beach area near Holloway's hotel. Following a series of radio announcements calling on tourists and locals to assist in the search, approximately 100 visitors and several residents joined efforts along a stretch of coastline measuring about 4.5 kilometers, extending all the way to the island's lighthouse. News crews and reporters soon began arriving on the island. Dave Holloway also joined the search, desperately hoping to find his daughter. Beth Holloway gave interviews for hours each day.
It is now that I ask the world to help me.
Surely the situation
around these three persons of interest will be clearer the coming days.
As a result, both authorities and the Holloway family began focusing on the three individuals last seen with her, Joran Vandersloot and the Kalpoe brothers. Beth Holloway said, "I need more information, and I need it right now. Yes, those boys have answers. They have answers. I know for certain that those three are involved in her disappearance." After 10 days since Natalee Holloway vanished, pressure from the media and the public continued to intensify. Joran and the two Kalpoe brothers were arrested on June 9, 2005, in connection with her disappearance. However, during questioning, they once again changed their story. This time, they claimed that after reaching the lighthouse, the Kalpoe brothers drove away, leaving Joran and Holloway alone on a beach approximately half a mile from her hotel. At the beach, Joran Vandersloot claimed that Holloway was so intoxicated she was nearly unconscious, drifting in and out, unable to walk properly. He said he left her there, and that was the last time he ever saw Natalee Holloway. In July 2005, a homeless man claimed he had seen the body of a woman at a landfill, but after multiple searches, nothing was found. That same summer, a container was discovered offshore. When it was pulled from the sea, it was completely empty. A park ranger later found a piece of duct tape with blonde hair attached, but DNA analysis confirmed it did not belong to Natalee. For nearly 3 months, new false leads surfaced almost daily, forcing Aruban police to investigate each one. With no solid information about Holloway, the case eventually reached a dead end. On September 3, 2005, Joran and the Kalpoe brothers were released due to lack of evidence connecting them to her disappearance. Joran's father, a powerful lawyer on the island, was suspected by some of orchestrating a cover-up to protect his son. This decision enraged the Holloway family, especially her mother, Beth Twitty. By this point, the case of Natalee Holloway had captured worldwide attention. Tips poured in from across Aruba, making it increasingly difficult for authorities to separate fact from rumor. While Aruban officials may have hoped the case would quiet down, American media coverage only intensified.
Holloway's mother is holding out hope that her daughter is still alive. Here's the latest on Joran Vandersloot. Shocking new details in the case of an Alabama teen missing in Aruba.
Every network news station, magazines, newspapers, the New York Times. Beth would give interviews for hours and hours a day.
But I've got to be getting more information, and I've got to have it soon.
They know who, they know where, they know when, they know how, and they know why. Why am I not getting it? Why are they not getting it? I do not know.
Every mother in America could sympathize with Beth Holloway as a mother who is desperately looking for her child in a strange country.
The situation escalated to the point where Beth Twitty later issued a public apology during a press conference for criticizing Aruba's legal system and referring to the Kalpoe brothers as criminals. Beth Twitty said,
"I would like to apologize to the Aruban people and the Aruban authorities if I or my family offended you in any way. It was never my intention to do so."
Around the same time, a controversial recording surfaced, allegedly capturing Deepak Kalpoe, admitting to having sexual contact with Natalee, and suggesting that she was under the influence, possibly of alcohol or other substances on the night she disappeared.
If it was an accident, I can help fault. And if you guys were partying, even if somebody had given her a day drug, I'm sure she had sex with all of it.
You're surprised how simple it was.
I mean, and I'm sure she had sex with all of it. And good.
She did.
Okay, well, I mean, good. If she did, fine.
You're surprised how simple it was.
The truth behind Deepak's exact response remains disputed. But one thing was certain. The public's attention on the Natalee Holloway case was growing rapidly. After being released, Joran capitalized on his sudden notoriety. In the years that followed, he continued to offer increasingly unbelievable stories, including claims that Holloway had been sold into a prostitution ring, along with allegations of extortion attempts. Joran seemed to understand how to manipulate the American media, as each new version of his story generated widespread coverage. 2 years passed. Then, in November 2007, Vandersloot and the Kalpoe brothers were arrested once again, only to be released later when a key witness's testimony was determined to be false. In 2008, he claimed that a few months before Holloway disappeared, he had met a man who wanted a blonde girl in exchange for money. He also stated that he had an incriminating recording of a conversation between himself and his father about this arrangement, something we will return to later. Once again, this brought Joran van der Sloot back into the spotlight, earning him yet another interview. The interview began with Greta van Susteren and Joran van der Sloot discussing the recorded conversation he claimed to have had with his father regarding the alleged sale of Natalee Holloway into a prostitution ring. Greta asked,
"You met a guy in February of 3 years ago who said he was interested in something. What was he interested in?"
He was interested in me bringing him a blonde girl.
Where did you meet this guy?
In the casinos in Aruba.
What's his name?
Yeah.
Did he ever say what he wanted a blonde girl for?
No.
Did you have any sort of guess what it was? I mean, was it sort of the code, you speak in code, you sort of knew what he wanted?
No, I wasn't really occupied with that at all.
He then went on to claim that on the day Natalee disappeared, he had taken her to the beach and handed her over to that man in exchange for money. According to this version, the man then placed a confused and intoxicated Natalee onto his boat and left. However, not long after this interview aired, Joran van der Sloot retracted the entire story. After we conducted this interview in Asia, Joran contacted us again. He said he had lied during the interview and that he had not sold Natalee Holloway to a stranger. He claimed he had made the whole story up. You can decide for yourself what is true and what is not. The authenticity of the phone call mentioned above also became highly controversial. Some believed it was genuine, while others argued that both voices in the recording were Joran's, with the second voice altered to sound like his father. Still, there is no evidence that Joran ever sold Natalee Holloway into human trafficking. However, there are indications that he may have been involved in trafficking activities in other cases, but that will be discussed later. After multiple arrests and releases, the Natalee Holloway case was officially closed in 2007 without any charges being filed due to lack of evidence. However, much of the public following the Holloway case placed even more blame on the Aruban authorities than on Joran himself. They frequently criticized the slow response during the first 2 to 3 days of the investigation, as well as the repeated release of Joran and the Kalpoe brothers after each arrest. Many accused the Aruban government of corruption or of covering something up. This led to calls for a boycott of Aruba. Whether those claims were true remains uncertain. Once again, the case fell into silence. Nearly 4 years after Holloway disappeared, there were still no answers, no physical evidence, and no one had been charged. But even though the official investigation had ended, countless theories continued to circulate about what really happened to Natalee Holloway. Some observers believe that Joran or the Kalpoe brothers may have drugged Holloway at Carlos and Charlie's to make it easier to approach her. Supporters of this theory argue that slipping something into her drink would have been entirely possible. Amid the loud music, flashing lights, and chaotic atmosphere of Carlos and Charlie's, combined with the fact that Natalee had been drinking, this scenario cannot be ruled out. One theory suggests that, for some reason, possibly alcohol poisoning or another, caused Natalee Holloway may have lost consciousness or even died on the beach. After that, Joran van der Sloot or one of his friends may have disposed of her body in the ocean. Many reject this theory, pointing out that extensive underwater searches conducted by Aruban authorities found no body or physical evidence. Additionally, if a body had been dumped close to shore, logic suggests that as decomposition occurred, it would likely have drifted back, meaning it would eventually have been discovered. However, others argue that if the body had been taken far enough offshore, ocean currents could have carried it away from the island, possibly out into the open Caribbean Sea. In a so-called hidden camera confession, Joran claimed that a man named Dory had helped dispose of Holloway's body at sea. However, as mentioned earlier, his former friend, Dory Rodriguez, completely denied any involvement. Another theory suggests that the Aruban government may have covered up Natalee Holloway's death. Some believe they protected Joran to preserve the country's image, which would explain why he was repeatedly released. Others argue that authorities only began collecting surveillance footage weeks later, by which time much of the critical data may have already been erased. In 2010, Joran moved faster than even the FBI, boarding a flight and fleeing to Peru. There, he gambled and lost nearly all of the money he had obtained through extortion. During that time, he met Stephanie Flores Ramirez, a 21-year-old student from a well-off family.
They met in a casino right outside of Miraflores in Lima, Peru. She was an athlete. She was a university student. She was studying business.
She was also a highly skilled poker player. Surveillance cameras showed Stephanie Flores cashing in her chips at 5 in the morning on May 30th, 2010. She left the casino with Joran van der Sloot, and the two were captured on video entering his hotel room. This was the last time Stephanie was seen alive. She was later brutally murdered in that very room.
He probably thought he could lure her to the room, maybe borrow money from her, possibly rob her. It's hard to say.
It just made me sick to think that my daughter's killer had struck again before we could take him off the streets.
Joran van der Sloot attempted to flee toward Chile.
The Peruvian police immediately put out kind of the Peruvian equivalent of an all-points bulletin for Joran. And as luck would have it, a guard at one of the crossings into Chile saw him in a cab, and they arrested him right there, and he was sent back to Lima.
And he was returned to Lima on June 4th, 2010, in a convoy of 16 Peruvian police vehicles. On January 11th, 2012, Joran van der Sloot, the prime suspect in the 2005 disappearance of Natalee Holloway, pleaded guilty to the murder of Stephanie Flores.
I want to give a sincere confession. I am truly regretful for what I have done. I feel very bad.
He was sentenced to 28 years in prison in Peru. But aside from a few false leads and mistaken identifications of remains, the Holloway case still appears far from being solved. Unlike many missing person cases that fade from public memory after a year or two, this case has remained in the spotlight for years, and one major reason is the central suspect himself. Every few months or years, Joran would resurface with a new version of events, each more complex and confusing than the last, not only to obscure the truth, but also to keep public attention focused on himself. Each new story brought him another interview, another headline, and his face once again appeared everywhere. And perhaps the most disturbing part is not what happened, but the possibility that we may never truly know. Natalee Holloway disappeared, but her story remains a haunting reminder that some mysteries never rest. Justice sometimes arrives very late, and sometimes it never arrives at all. But by continuing to remember, by continuing to tell her story, we ensure that the truth is never completely buried in the darkness. Grace Millane's final moments were captured by CCTV cameras on the night of December 1st, 2018, just hours before her 22nd birthday. In the footage, Grace is smiling, linking arms with a man she had only recently met through Tinder, as they walk into the City Life Hotel in Auckland, like it was nothing more than a normal date night. No one knew that this would be the last time she would ever appear on camera alive. Just a few hours later, Grace vanished completely. But when police began reviewing every frame of CCTV footage, they uncovered a chilling sequence of events. What truly happened inside apartment 308 that night shocked all of New Zealand. Grace Millane was born in Essex, United Kingdom, on December 2nd, 1996. She was known as a sweet, cheerful young woman who deeply loved her family. Her parents, David and Gillian, raised Grace alongside her two older brothers, Michael and Declan, and she was the youngest of the three children. Grace attended the University of Lincoln, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in advertising and marketing. She was excited by the idea of adventure and discovering new places around the world. Like many recent graduates, Grace had spent time saving money for a one-year backpacking trip after finishing university. Before starting her career, she wanted to experience life, explore new countries, meet new people, and create unforgettable memories. Throughout her travels, Grace regularly shared photos and moments from her journey on Instagram. After spending 6 weeks in South America, where she met many fellow travelers and made new friends, she continued documenting her experiences online. Grace eventually continued her journey around the world and arrived in New Zealand, where she planned to stay for 2 weeks. In October 2018, the adventurous and outgoing graduate left her family home and began her travels. Before reaching New Zealand, she had visited Peru and spent 6 weeks exploring South America. On November 19th, 21-year-old Grace arrived alone in New Zealand as part of her world trip. 2 weeks later, she reached Auckland and checked into a hostel called Base Backpackers on Queen Street, where she shared a room with several other travelers. On Saturday evening, December 1st, 2018, Grace left the hostel just before 6 o'clock in the evening and headed into the city center. She was wearing a knee-length black dress, white shoes, and carrying a small handbag. Grace had arranged to meet a man she had connected with on Tinder. At first, she seemed unsure about meeting him in person, but after talking for a while longer, the two agreed to go out for drinks together. Just hours before her 22nd birthday, Grace met the man from Tinder, 26-year-old Jesse Kempson, an Australian man who was also living in Auckland. Right before meeting Jesse, Grace took a photo of the Christmas tree at Sky City and sent it to her family. It would become the last message they ever received from her. After an awkward hug and a few nervous smiles, the pair walked into Sky City, an entertainment complex filled with bars, restaurants, and a casino. They first went to a burger restaurant for dinner. The conversation seemed to go well, and afterward they decided to continue the night at a Mexican-style bar for drinks sometime after 7 o'clock. At around 8:30 in the evening, Jesse paid for their drinks while chatting with the bartender, and the two left for another location, a bar located only a few minutes away from Jesse's apartment. It was at this bar that the pair appeared to become more intimate. At 8:50 that evening, CCTV footage captured them kissing. For the next hour, they flirted, laughed, and continued kissing. There was nothing to suggest that this was anything other than a completely normal date night. At one point, Jesse briefly left the table. While he was gone, Grace sent a message to a friend back home. "I'm on a date with a guy who manages an oil company, unlimited cocktails. He keeps saying, 'Tomorrow's your birthday, so tonight we're partying hard. He lives in a hotel. I'm really getting along with him. I'll tell you tomorrow what happens next.'" After sending those messages, Jesse returned to the table, and the two continued drinking and kissing until around 9:40 that night. But there was one strange moment. Grace stepped away from the table briefly, and for reasons unknown, Jesse picked up her handbag and began looking through it. Shortly after 9:30 that evening, CCTV cameras captured the pair leaving the bar arm in arm as they walked through the streets together toward the City Life Hotel, where Jesse was renting an apartment. They stayed very close to each other. Jesse had his arm around Grace's shoulders, and both appeared relaxed and happy. These were the final images ever recorded of Grace Millane alive. Security cameras inside the hotel elevator captured the pair entering together and exiting on the 3rd floor just before 10 o'clock that night. From that moment on, Grace's friend never received another message about the date. The following day was Sunday, December 2nd, also Grace's 22nd birthday. Back home, her family and friends repeatedly tried to contact her through Facebook and Instagram, but something immediately felt wrong. Grace did not respond to anyone, and both of her phones were going straight to voicemail. Her brother, Declan, later explained that Grace had always been constantly updating the family with photos and details from her travels. So when she suddenly stopped replying on her own birthday, everyone became deeply concerned. Grace was extremely close with her family, and this behavior was completely out of character for her. At first, the family tried to convince themselves that Grace was simply busy, or perhaps staying somewhere with poor phone reception. But after 3 full days passed without a single response, panic began to set in. Her parents eventually contacted Auckland police and officially reported her missing on December 5th. Investigators quickly spoke with the manager of the hostel where Grace had been staying and confirmed that she had never returned on the night of December 1st. Initially, police did not suspect foul play. Most of Grace's belongings were still inside the hostel, so investigators believed she may have stayed with new friends and simply forgotten to contact anyone. Fortunately for detectives, it did not take long to trace Grace's movements from that Saturday night, thanks to the city's extensive CCTV camera network. The mysterious man seen with her that evening was quickly identified. On the very night Grace was last seen alive, she had updated her Facebook profile picture. Beneath the photo was a comment that read, "Beautiful, very radiant." The person who posted that comment was the same Tinder date seen drinking with Grace that night. That man was Jesse Kempson, who at the time was staying at the City Life Hotel in Auckland. Before posting that comment, Jesse had also shared a strange social media post of his own. In it, he apologized for his mistakes, his arrogance, and his selfish behavior. But who exactly was Jesse Kempson? 26-year-old Jesse was born in Wellington and moved around frequently as a child after his parents divorced. He was partially raised by his grandparents and was largely estranged from much of his family. Almost everyone who knew Jesse described him as a compulsive and pathological liar. He fabricated stories constantly, claiming everything from being related to a famous All Blacks rugby player to telling people he was dying of terminal cancer. Jesse repeatedly lied to employers, landlords, girlfriends, friends, and even his own family. Eventually, Jesse's fake world began catching up with him. He was frequently evicted from homes and fired from jobs because of his endless lies. One former landlord said Jesse had claimed to be a professional softball player who had signed with New Zealand's national softball team, the Black Sox. Jesse repeatedly insisted he was simply waiting for his contract money to arrive. But after 8 weeks of excuses, the landlord contacted the Black Sox organization directly and once again discovered Jesse had been lying. Jesse had also told staff at the City Life Hotel that he was a senior manager for Woolworths. In reality, however, his rent was being paid through government welfare assistance. His most recent job had been in telemarketing sales, but that employment also ended after he was fired for dishonesty. And all of this happened on the very same day he met Grace Millane, December 1st. Jesse was the last person seen with Grace that night, and police knew he was the one man who could help explain the missing pieces in this mysterious disappearance. On the same day, Grace was officially reported missing. December 5th, Jesse was asked to come to the police station for what was described as a routine interview.
Tell us about Grace.
So I was talking to Grace on Tinder.
Yeah.
We'd matched on Friday. I saw that we'd matched the next day on Saturday. And then we met at Sky City. And then we decided that we were going up to Andy's Burger Bar, which is on the first floor.
Whose idea was it to go to that particular burger place?
Me. Because I didn't initially know that she was real.
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lot of... So have you heard of catfish?
No.
So catfishing is where someone uses your profile, uses your photos and pretends to be you and then meets, and you're a completely different person.
How does meeting in a public place sort of protect you from meeting someone who's not as good looking as...
Well, there's security there. So if she wasn't who she said she was, at least in my mind, I'd feel safe. Yeah, that's us.
Down there?
Yeah. So she's going that way, and I'm going across the street. I go down Queen Street. I go down Victoria Street, straight down to the bottom, and then hang a left, and I head towards the viaduct.
You've kind of walked in a bit of a funny direction if you were planning to go to the viaduct. Is there a particular reason you were going to do that?
I feel safer down that way.
And we're very, very concerned for her safety, obviously. It's entirely possible that she's been the victim of foul play. Do you understand what that means? What would your feelings be about providing us with a voluntary DNA sample in the event that we can compare that against something? Would you be happy?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know I haven't done anything wrong, so I'm happy to do it.
Okay. At this stage, we don't know what's happened to this girl. It's possible that somebody has killed her. Okay. You understand that? She might, when I say foul play, I mean that someone might have murdered her. Don't know if she's been murdered or not yet. She may be alive and well.
Okay.
But she might also be dead. Okay? And it could be that you've done it.
Hey, I just want to ask a question. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do?
You haven't been arrested, mate.
Oh.
No.
It's like, holy shit.
CCTV footage from the morning of December 2nd was already revealing something disturbing. While Grace's family was sending her birthday messages, Jesse was seen taking the elevator downstairs and walking to a shopping center across from the hotel. It appeared he was searching for something very specific, a large suitcase. After returning to the apartment with the suitcase, CCTV cameras later captured him leaving again to purchase cleaning supplies from another store. He even rented a professional carpet cleaning machine and calmly brought it upstairs in the elevator, standing beside another hotel guest as though nothing had happened. When questioned by staff, Jesse casually explained that there were some red wine stains inside the apartment that needed to be cleaned. A short time later, Jesse left the building once again and took a taxi. CCTV cameras captured him arriving at a rental car office, where he collected the keys to a red Toyota Corolla before driving back to the City Life apartment. Just hours later, Jesse went on another Tinder date with a different woman. She later told police that he made several disturbing comments during their conversation that left her deeply uncomfortable and frightened. At one point, Jesse told her about someone he supposedly knew who had accidentally killed a woman during rough sex. The woman later explained that Jesse gave her an extremely unsettling feeling. She became so uncomfortable that she refused his offer to get into the car with him and instead found her own way home. Her instincts told her to stay away from the situation. She never contacted Jesse again after that night. Security cameras later captured Jesse transporting large suitcases downstairs using the elevator. He loaded them onto a luggage cart and moved them out of the apartment building toward the parking garage. He then placed the suitcases into the trunk of the rented Corolla. Afterward, Jesse went to sleep and woke up very early the next morning before driving off to an unknown location. At around 7 o'clock in the morning, CCTV cameras recorded Jesse once again at a convenience store. This time, he purchased a shovel. 2 hours later, cameras captured him cleaning the rental car at a car wash. He carefully and thoroughly wiped down the vehicle before eventually returning it to the rental company. On December 5th, the same day Grace was officially reported missing, Jesse was recorded on CCTV, traveling to several different locations around the city and throwing items into public trash bins. On December 7th, Grace's father, David, flew to Auckland and made an emotional public plea, begging for help in finding his daughter.
I'm David Millane, Grace's dad. Thank you for coming today. As you know, Grace has been missing for several days. We last had contact with her on Saturday the 1st of December. And as a family, we've been extremely concerned for her welfare. Grace is a lovely, outgoing, fun-loving, family-orientated daughter. Grace has never been out of contact for this amount of time. She's usually in daily contact with either her mother, myself, her two brothers, members of the family on social media. She arrived here on the 20th of November and has been bombarding us with numerous photographs and messages of her adventures. We're all extremely upset, and it's very difficult at this time to fully describe the range of emotions we are going through.
But everything changed once investigators fully reviewed the CCTV footage. Very quickly, police focused their attention on Jesse, the cleaning supplies, the industrial carpet cleaner, the rental car. Everything appeared to point towards someone attempting to destroy evidence. But where was Grace? After seeing the large suitcase Jesse purchased only hours after Grace disappeared, along with footage showing him transporting it using a luggage cart, investigators began fearing the worst. They believed Jesse had used the suitcase to transport Grace's body. Police contacted Jesse directly. He claimed he had no idea where Grace went after their date ended. But as detectives questioned him further, Jesse repeatedly lied about his movements that night, giving contradictory and inconsistent statements while trying to reconstruct the timeline of events.
Tell us about Grace.
So I was talking to Grace on Tinder.
Yeah.
We'd matched on Friday. I saw that we'd matched the next day on Saturday. And then we met at Sky City. And then we decided that we were going up to Andy's Burger Bar, which is on the first floor.
Whose idea was it to go to that particular burger place?
Me, because I knew I didn't. initially know that she was real.
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lot of... So have you heard of catfish?
No.
So catfishing is where someone uses your profile, or uses your photos and pretends to be you and then meets, and you're a completely different person.
How does meeting in a public place sort of protect you from meeting someone who's not as good looking as...
Well, there's security there. So if she wasn't who she said she was, at least in my mind I'd feel safe. Yeah, that's us.
Down there?
Yep. So she's going that way, and I'm going across the street. I go down Queen Street. I go down Victoria Street, straight down to the bottom, and then hang a left, and I head towards the viaduct.
You've kind of walked in a bit of a funny direction if you were planning to go to the viaduct. Is there a particular reason you would kind of do that?
I feel safer down that way.
And we're very, very concerned for her safety, obviously. It's entirely possible that she's been the victim of foul play.
Okay.
You understand what that means?
Yeah.
What would your feelings be about providing us with a voluntary DNA sample in the event that we can compare that against something? Would you be happy with that?
100%. I mean, I know I haven't done anything wrong, so I'm happy to do it.
Okay. At this stage, we don't know what's happened to this girl.
Okay.
It's possible that somebody has killed her. Okay. You understand that?
Yeah.
She might, when I say foul play, I mean that someone might have murdered her. Don't know if she's been murdered or not yet. She may be alive and well.
Okay.
But she might also be dead. Okay. And it could be that you've done it.
Hey, I just want to ask a question. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do?
You haven't been arrested, mate.
I was like, holy shit.
Police had already been suspicious of Jesse from the very beginning, and after hearing his first statement, investigators became even more convinced that something was terribly wrong. Meanwhile, the CCTV footage was telling an entirely different story, one far more detailed than Jesse's version of events. The following day, detectives brought Jesse back to the station for another interview.
Indicated that you're willing to speak to us about the events of last Saturday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me what happened last Saturday.
From the beginning?
Did you kill Grace Millane? Okay. Jesse Kempson, you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Millane.
This time, he knew he was cornered. He understood that continuing to lie was no longer going to save him. Eventually, Jesse admitted that he had killed Grace Millane, but like many killers in similar cases, he quickly tried to portray himself as the victim. Through tears, Jesse claimed he never intended to kill her. According to him, it had all been an accident. He told police that after the two had sex, things somehow spiraled out of control. Jesse claimed that Grace had asked him to choke her during intercourse, but that things had gone too far. It was just an accident, he told investigators. Jesse then described how he disposed of Grace's body, cleaned the apartment, and attempted to get rid of the evidence. Using the information from his confession, police were finally able to locate Grace's remains. Every clue led investigators to the Waitakere Ranges, a remote mountainous area west of Auckland, near a location called Scenic Drive. After approximately 4 hours of searching, police discovered the body of 22-year-old Grace Millane inside a suitcase buried underground. Jesse Kempson's murder trial began in November 2019. He pleaded not guilty, continuing to insist that Grace's death had been a tragic accident and that he never intended to kill her. But the extremely detailed reconstruction of his movements through CCTV footage painted a completely different picture. The jury did not see a panicked man reacting to a horrifying accident. They saw a cold and calculating killer disposing of a young woman's body with shocking cruelty, and then methodically attempting to erase every trace afterward. Beyond the CCTV footage, Jesse's internet search history became one of the most critical pieces of evidence, proving that this was never an accident. At around 1:30 on Sunday morning, Only minutes after Grace was believed to have been killed and left lying motionless on the floor of his apartment, Jesse used his phone to search for phrases such as hottest fire and Waitakere Ranges, the very location where Grace's body would later be discovered. It appeared that, even at that moment, he had already begun planning how to dispose of her body. Just minutes later, Jesse accessed a pornography website and watched videos. He also searched for the rental car company he would use the following day. But that was still not the worst part. Police later discovered multiple photographs of Grace's body stored on Jesse's phone. There were 7 images in total. The photographs were intimate in nature and taken from different angles and positions. Investigators later uncovered Jesse's involvement in other allegations, including rape, sexual assault, threats, and multiple acts of violence against women. The defense continued trying to push the narrative that Grace's death was the result of a sexual game gone wrong, especially because there were no obvious defensive wounds found on her body. However, Grace had consumed a significant amount of alcohol throughout the night. Toxicology reports showed that her blood alcohol level was high. Investigators believed her intoxicated state may have made it difficult for her to fight back, or may have caused her to lose consciousness far more quickly than normal, and it was very possible that Jesse understood that. After a 3-week trial and 5 hours of jury deliberation, Jesse Kempson was found guilty of murdering Grace Millane. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. Jesse later appealed the conviction twice, but both appeals were rejected. He is currently serving his sentence inside a maximum security prison in Auckland. Grace Millane only wanted to experience a beautiful adventure while traveling the world in her youth, but that journey ended in heartbreaking tragedy far from home. Behind this case was not only a cold and calculated crime, but also the unimaginable grief of a family who would forever wait for a daughter that would never come home again. Today, we are going to explore a tragedy that unfolded in the early morning hours of October 28, 2020. Morgan Fox was 29 years old. She lived with her 9-year-old daughter and her boyfriend in Plain Township, Stark County, Ohio. Her daughter was the most important thing in her life. At the time, Morgan worked as an operations manager at FedEx. She worked hard every day and always tried to give her daughter a happy and comfortable life. It was Morgan's boyfriend who discovered her unconscious in the driveway outside their home. Morgan was motionless in the driver's seat of her SUV. The car door was partially open, and she had suffered a head injury. Panicked, her boyfriend immediately called 911. This was his conversation with the dispatcher.
911, you need police, fire, or medical help?
Police, medical. I'm pretty sure my girlfriend's dead. I got up for work, came out, looked outside, I seen a car out here. I came out here and she's laying in her front seat, unresponsive, very cold, covered in blood. Oh my God.
You doing okay, sir?
No.
I understand. We're going to get you some help here as quick as possible.
When officers arrived at the scene, heavy rain was pouring down, terrible conditions that could easily destroy important evidence. Morgan's body was positioned half inside and half outside the vehicle. Her purse was still beside her. There were no signs of a robbery. There was even cash left inside the car, but the killer had not taken any of it.
I responded to the scene. As I approached the driveway, I saw a female sitting in the vehicle slumped over the center console.
Then officers noticed something unusual. There was a bullet hole in the passenger side door, and they quickly realized Morgan had been shot. Beside a neighboring house, investigators found fresh tire tracks across the grass and mud splattered onto a fence, though at the time it was unclear whether they were connected to the murder. When the forensic team removed Morgan's body from the vehicle, they discovered 2 gunshot wounds to her head. One bullet entered behind her left ear, and the other struck the top of her head. Everything suggested that the killer had approached the SUV just as Morgan got inside and then opened fire. Investigators now had to determine who was responsible for this cold-blooded and brutal murder. Several items were scattered near the vehicle, including Morgan's cell phone. A cell phone can be one of the most important pieces of evidence because it often contains critical information for an investigation. Police seized the phone, hoping the rain had not damaged it beyond recovery. Morgan's mother told investigators that she had spoken with her daughter on the phone the night before. Detectives asked whether Morgan had any enemies, what her relationship with her boyfriend was like, and whether anyone might have wanted to hurt her. Morgan's mother explained that Morgan and her boyfriend sometimes had problems in their relationship, but recently things had been improving. She also revealed that Morgan had conflicts with several men she worked with. Police usually begin by investigating the people closest to the victim. The first person they looked into was Morgan's boyfriend. Morgan's boyfriend said they had been living together for about 1 year. He was not the biological father of Morgan's daughter, but according to him, they got along very well. Her boyfriend told detectives that he woke up at 6 o'clock that morning.
Her boyfriend found her that morning when he woke up. She worked for a shipping company that was local, and she worked early morning shift. So she has to be at work at 2:30 in the morning, and she's usually gone by 2:15. But he saw her vehicle still in the driveway.
Feeling that something was wrong, he immediately went outside to see what had happened. When he stepped outside, he found Morgan unconscious inside the vehicle, and he immediately called 911. He appeared upset, emotional, and agitated while speaking with investigators. He seemed devastated by Morgan's death and willing to cooperate fully with the investigation. Throughout the interview, detectives did not notice any obvious signs that he was hiding something. He explained that the previous day, Morgan had taken her daughter to her grandmother's house, as she usually did whenever she worked the night shift. After returning home, Morgan had dinner and then went to bed. Morgan's boyfriend also told investigators about an incident that caught their attention. According to him, Morgan had previously argued with several male co-workers after they took her phone while it was sitting on a desk at work. When Morgan walked into the office, she discovered them looking through her photos and personal information on the device. Furious, Morgan confronted them, and an argument followed. The crime scene offered very little physical evidence, so investigators hoped nearby security cameras might provide answers. Officers went door to door throughout the neighborhood and eventually discovered several homes equipped with doorbell surveillance cameras. At that point, this was almost their only hope, because investigators had no other leads. But in the end, that hope also disappeared. The surveillance footage revealed nothing suspicious. Fortunately for the police, the rain had not damaged Morgan's cell phone, and investigators were able to power it on. They analyzed her messages and discovered that the last person Morgan had texted was her boyfriend. After reviewing the conversations, detectives realized that Morgan's relationship with her boyfriend appeared to be stable. On October 8th, just 20 days before her death, Morgan had texted her boyfriend about several coworkers who had taken her phone and searched through the data inside. Morgan believed they had seen private photos of her. After reading those messages, investigators no longer doubted that Morgan's boyfriend had been telling the truth. Because police had now heard about Morgan's problems with her coworkers from 2 separate sources, they decided to visit her workplace to learn more about the incident. A manager confirmed that the situation involving Morgan's phone had actually happened, and that 3 male employees had been involved.
Morgan had talked to me about so many issues at work. She was looking for her phone in the warehouse, and so she had asked around her, hey, did anyone see my phone? And there was a guy there, Larry, who had said to her, Jason McDermott, the package handler, has it up in the sort tower. She went up there and confronted him, and she saw him hide it in his pocket. Eventually, he gave her her phone. She could tell that these 3 people had looked at her private things that were on there. And they were snickering and making like sexist remarks about her, and she was really hurt because she was trying to be professional. She was very much violated.
FedEx provided police with the personal records of the 3 men, and after reviewing them,
We get the personnel files from the employer for suspects 2, 3, and 4. And in 3 and 4, there's really nothing significant in these files that would raise any flags. But in suspect number 2's file, there was a huge red flag for me. Suspect number 2 is Jason McDermott. He was disciplined previously for harassing a female coworker. He was bothering her, wouldn't leave her alone, even after being told to stop. Immediately after hearing that she was having these problems with some fellow coworkers, they immediately became suspects in this case. One of the guys in the group of the coworkers that looked through her phone was a 29-year-old named Jason McDermott.
Police knew that Morgan usually left home around 2 o'clock in the morning for work and was expected to arrive by 2:30. Since Morgan had never even managed to drive away from the house, Investigators concluded that the murder must have occurred sometime between 2 o'clock and 2:30 that morning. Because of this, detectives decided to verify the exact time Jason McDermott arrived at work that night and requested access to the company's security footage. The surveillance video showed McDermott arriving at the facility at 2:58 in the morning and entering through the back door. That meant that during the time of the murder, McDermott was not at work. As a result, he quickly became the #1 suspect in the case. McDermott left the company at 9:58 that morning, and according to the manager, he behaved completely normally throughout the shift. FedEx also confirmed that McDermott was employed by the company. In a public statement, a spokesperson said, "We continue to extend our deepest condolences to the family and friends of our coworker, Morgan Fox, following this tragic incident. FedEx Ground is fully cooperating with law enforcement throughout the investigation." According to one witness statement, Morgan had cut off her relationship with McDermott, and it devastated him. McDermott had reportedly written apology letters to Morgan and had already received a verbal warning at work. He was told that if the behavior continued, he could be terminated. Morgan's family did not know who to suspect. Through social media, Morgan's sister pleaded for anyone with information to contact the police.
I didn't even know who to suspect killed her. I was trying to go through my head of who could have done this to Morgan. And so I started Facebooking. Facebook was the only thing that we all could do, was keep sharing and begging people to come forward with information. Somebody knows, somebody was there, somebody saw something. I cannot figure out how somebody could do what they've done.
Morgan's family also faced the heartbreaking task of telling her 9-year-old daughter that her mother had died. Meanwhile, investigators focused their attention on Morgan's co-workers. They continued analyzing her cell phone to determine whether Morgan had exchanged messages with the people who had taken her phone and viewed her private photos.
She sent a message to her fiance letting him know that her phone was taken, and some of her coworkers were going through her phone. She had intimate photographs of herself that she could tell they looked at. Seeing this conversation with her fiance really confirms that this happened. We heard about it from her fiance. Now I'm actually seeing it on her phone.
They discovered conversations with Jason McDermott. There was a large amount of information that immediately caught investigators' attention. About 1 year before Morgan's death, Jason had brought breakfast to her at work. He texted her saying that he would always be there if she needed help. Morgan thanked him and told him she appreciated it very much. Based on the messages, it appeared that Morgan viewed Jason as only a friend, while Jason clearly wanted something more. However, after October 8th, when Morgan discovered that several coworkers, including Jason McDermott, had been looking through her phone, she began seeing him very differently.
There were videos of Morgan on McDermott's phone. Clearly, you could tell he was just taking on his own without other people knowing. He would follow behind her and video her as she was walking, and he would keep zooming in the video on her rear end.
He had 70-some pictures of Morgan that he had obtained, not from her, but through other means.
The messages Morgan later sent to Jason became cold and harsh because he had destroyed her trust. Morgan confronted Jason about the incident involving her cell phone. McDermott replied that he was deeply sorry for what had happened, but Morgan no longer wanted to speak with him and stopped treating him the way she once had. The final communication between them took place on October 24th, just 4 days before Morgan was killed.
But as we were going through his phone, it appeared to me that he was infatuated with her. I could see text strings and text conversations between them to where if she didn't answer right away, he was blowing her up with several messages.
Jason sent her a message asking, "How was your trip to Columbus?" Morgan replied, "How do you even know about that?" At the time, Morgan was in Columbus with her family, and she seemed surprised that Jason knew where she was. Jason responded by claiming that she herself had told him about the trip. But after the cell phone incident, Morgan had barely spoken to him at all. Even more troubling, investigators could not find a single message on Morgan's phone showing that she had ever told Jason she was going to Columbus. This raised suspicions that Jason McDermott may have been secretly following her. Jason was immediately brought to the police station for questioning.
During the interview later in the afternoon with Morgan's coworker, Jason McDermott, He basically ended up painting me a picture of them being good friends.
Let's now take a closer look at the interrogation process.
So, just from looking through you guys' text messages, I will tell you there is a very different story there compared to what you portray as just being friends. I'm telling you, I know what it is when I read it. Okay. And you may have been playing along with the friendship, and I 100% believe that you're in love with her. There's an infatuation there going on your end. Maybe not necessarily her end.
I never saw it as such. That before I said when I was questioning whether or not I felt anything about her, yes, I did inquire with people, but I was thinking about it. I was like, maybe I do have feelings for her. I wasn't sure, and I was pondering it for a while, and then eventually I came to the conclusion that no, I just really care about her.
Detectives asked Jason whether he knew anyone who might want to hurt Morgan. He replied that he did not know anyone who would want to harm her. Then one of the officers asked him directly, "Did you shoot Morgan Fox?" Jason answered, "No." He firmly denied having any involvement in Morgan's death. Jason agreed to let investigators examine his cell phone. Detectives hoped they would find something inside the device that could either confirm or disprove his statements. The first thing investigators wanted to know was where Jason's phone had been on the night Morgan was attacked. If there was evidence placing him near Morgan's house during the time of the murder, he would immediately become the prime suspect. However, after reviewing the phone's location history, investigators saw that Jason's cell phone remained in the area where he lived from 4 o'clock in the afternoon on October 27th until 2:48 in the morning. On October 28th, when Jason left home for work, his phone appeared to have never left that area during the entire period beforehand. Normally, that would suggest the owner of the phone had stayed home during that time. McDermott's cell phone was sent to a forensic laboratory so specialists could extract all of the data from it, including deleted information. As the investigation continued, police gradually ruled out nearly every suspect, leaving only Morgan's boyfriend and her co-worker, Jason McDermott. However, it was McDermott who continued to raise the most suspicion, so investigators decided to focus their attention on him. Before bringing McDermott in for another interrogation, police located him at his parents' house. His vehicle was parked in the driveway, and officers noticed that the car appeared to have been washed very recently. That immediately struck them as odd because it had rained heavily the previous day, and the roads were still wet. Investigators began asking themselves one question: why would he need to wash his car right now? Jason explained that after finishing work on October 28th, he stopped at a gas station and a car wash. Detectives immediately went there to review the security footage. The surveillance video confirmed that McDermott had gone to the car wash directly after work. But investigators noticed another strange detail. After carefully cleaning the rear wheel wells, McDermott somehow returned and cleaned the same area a second time. Detectives found that highly unusual, especially because the roads were still wet from the rain. After washing the vehicle, he drove past a gas station and toward a nearby convenience store, but he never went inside. Instead, after parking and stepping out of the car, he walked around his Ford and inspected it very carefully. Experts later analyzed the tire impressions found at the crime scene and concluded that they were consistent with McDermott's tires. That explained why he had gone to the car wash and cleaned the wheels so thoroughly. Police continued speaking with Jason's friends and co-workers. All of them knew about the incident involving Morgan's cell phone. They also knew that after it happened, Morgan had completely cut off communication with him, and every single one of them confirmed that Jason was devastated by it. His behavior changed dramatically. It appeared that he had become obsessed with bringing Morgan back into his life. Investigators monitored McDermott and discovered that he attended a prayer vigil held near Morgan's home. He also posted photos from the memorial on social media, along with a lengthy message dedicated to her. He shared a photo of Morgan with the hashtag #JusticeForMorganAshley and wrote, "Foxy, I wish I had enough time to explain all the ways you impacted my life, but that list is far too long. We would never finish it. You were the friend I always knew I could turn to whenever I was having a bad day and needed someone to talk to." Experts eventually managed to extract the data from his cell phone. The report even included information McDermott had carefully deleted. His browser history showed that he visited adult video websites on a daily basis. Investigators believed he appeared deeply obsessed with that kind of content. In conversations with other people, he frequently mentioned Morgan, and even shared photos of her. There were hundreds of pictures of Morgan stored on his phone. McDermott was also messaging numerous women on social media. Afterward, he would try convincing those who replied to meet him in person. But according to the data recovered from the phone, at some point McDermott began focusing all of his attention entirely on Morgan Fox and stopped messaging other women altogether. He even kept notes documenting things Morgan did. Jason McDermott was now the prime suspect, but investigators still needed to place him directly at the crime scene, and a traffic camera finally helped them do exactly that. While reviewing the footage, investigators spotted McDermott's Ford driving toward Morgan's house at 1:38 in the morning. Then, at 2:17, the vehicle was seen traveling in the opposite direction. By that time, Morgan was already dead. 1 week after Morgan's murder, McDermott was arrested. Police searched his vehicle but never found the murder weapon. According to investigators, McDermott drove to Morgan's house and parked in the same location where detectives later discovered tire tracks in the grass. He waited there for Morgan to leave the house and get into her SUV. When Morgan stepped outside, McDermott approached her vehicle and fired 2 shots into her head. He then returned to his car and quickly fled the scene. McDermott sped away at high speed, spraying mud across a nearby white fence. He returned home, picked up the cell phone he had intentionally left behind in order to create an alibi, and then drove to work. After finishing his shift, he immediately went to the car wash to clean the mud that was still stuck to the tires. The trial began in April 2021. McDermott did not testify in court, but throughout the investigation and trial, he continued insisting that he was innocent. Defense attorney Ty Graham argued that the investigation had been flawed from the beginning because police focused too heavily on McDermott. "This is a young man who stayed out of trouble, worked long hours, and went home to sleep," Graham told the jury. Graham also stated that on October 8th, McDermott discovered 2 co-workers at FedEx holding Morgan's missing cell phone, and that he had looked at it together with them. According to the defense, McDermott later wrote Morgan an apology letter. The defense attorney also raised another question. How could Morgan's boyfriend, who was inside the house at the time she was murdered, fail to hear 2 gunshots fired less than 10 meters away? McDermott voluntarily provided his DNA and allowed police to examine his vehicle, his cell phone, and even his parents' house. According to the defense, McDermott's father owned several firearms, but McDermott himself did not have permission to use them. In the end, the jury found McDermott guilty of stalking and murdering Morgan Fox. Before the judge delivered the sentence, members of Morgan's family gave heartbreaking victim impact statements.
"I'll never get my daughter back. I miss her so much and I love her so much, and I'm going to struggle for the rest of my life, so may you do the same. You can rot in hell, Jason McDermott, you worthless individual. Thank you, Your Honor."
I love my mom a lot. She was my whole world and life. I will never see her again because of the monster in this room. I thought monsters weren't real, but you proved me wrong. You hurt so many people. You hurt me and the people I love. I just wanted to know why you did it. It will haunt me for the rest of my life, and that life will be without my mommy. I wish she could see me graduate from high school. I wish she could see me get married. You made it so she can't do any of these. You ruined your own life because of how much of a bad person you are.
Jason McDermott was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Judge Natalee Holloway had the option of allowing parole eligibility after 23 years, but she chose to deny any possibility of parole. Although you have no prior criminal record, I believe there is still a significant risk that you could commit further crimes, and society must be protected from you, the judge stated. The case of Morgan Fox is not just the story of a life stolen away. It is also a terrifying warning about obsession and silent control. Sometimes, the most dangerous person is the one standing closest to us. Early morning, February 5th, 2011, Newport, Wales. The sky was still dark. A smoke alarm pierced the silence, but no one knew that inside that apartment, a horrific crime had already taken place hours earlier. Nikita, 19 years old, heavily pregnant with just 2 weeks left before her due date, had been murdered in her own bed. The killer was not a stranger. He stood outside, among the crowd, watching the flames consume every piece of evidence. Someone trusted, someone no one suspected. But the real question was not who he was. It was, why didn't anyone see him sooner? Nikita Marie Grender was born on December 19, 1991, in Newport, South Wales, a former industrial town along the River Usk, where people knew their neighbors and children still played outside after dinner. She lived with her mother, Marcia, and her stepfather, Paul.
I'll never forget holding her. I was just staring at her, just thinking how beautiful she was. And is.
5 years later, her younger brother Luke was born.
I had a girl and I had a boy, and that was exactly how I wanted it. I just felt complete, that was it. That's all I wanted, a little boy and a little girl.
Their family was close, loving, and deeply supportive of one another.
Family is very important to me, Marcia, and our children. You've got to have a good family around you, no matter what.
Nikita shared a special bond with Paul.
She absolutely idolized her dad.
Everyone who met Nikita remembered her not because she tried to stand out, but because she didn't have to. She could walk into a room and the atmosphere would shift. Laughter would spread. Conversations would spark. People felt seen around her. Her friends called her Keat. Her mother called her the light of the home. Nikita loved fashion and beauty not in a superficial way, but in the way of someone who knew exactly who she was. She had a habit of pausing in front of mirrors or reflective windows to look at herself. Paul would tease her. "What do you see, Keat?" She would just smile. Nikita also loved animals and went everywhere with her pug, Missy.
All the neighbours knew Missy anyway. Everyone knew Nikita and Missy. It was like Paris Hilton and her little dog in her bag.
The most important person in Nikita's life was Ryan Mays, a boy she met when she was 15. They had been together ever since. As one of Nikita's friends later recalled,
I remember when they first got together, she came to school and said that she had a boyfriend, and she said her name was Ryan. She idolised him. She always talked about him.
6 years together, they argued, made up, then argued again, like any young couple. But in the end, they always found their way back to each other. Her father, Paul, would later speak through tears about their relationship.
I think I've seen a lot of myself in Ryan, how I used to be when I was his age. When I used to see them together, you could see how happy they were. But I had to let Ryan know that I was her father, and there was no way on this earth, no matter what happened, that he was going to hurt her.
In the spring of 2010, Nikita and Ryan received the news they had both been waiting for. Nikita was pregnant.
She wanted his babies. She wanted to marry him. She wanted to spend the rest of her life with him.
They found out they were having a girl. They chose her name immediately, Kelsey May.
We all decided on the name Kelsey May. We went out then, and she had bought new paper for the bedroom, for the nursery in the flat.
Their small flat at number 51 Broadmead Park was transformed. Tiny clothes neatly folded in drawers, a crib placed against the wall, everything ready.
She had everything, absolutely everything. She covered herself for the first year, definitely.
Nikita's due date was February 18th, just 2 weeks away. The night before everything changed, Nikita stayed home alone. Missy, her little pug always by her side like Paris Hilton, carried her handbag curled up next to her. The small flat was warm, quiet. A young woman and her unborn child, waiting for morning. It was the most peaceful image of Nikita Grender. The last, Friday, February 4th, 2011. Ryan worked his usual shift. Selling double-glazed windows wasn't glamorous, but it was steady enough to support the small family he was about to have. He was 17, about to become a father, and he wasn't afraid of it. Working alongside him that day, as always, was Carl Want, a distant cousin, someone Ryan looked up to, someone he trusted like a brother. That evening, the two of them went to a party on Corelli Street. Music, beer, the energy of a weekend night. Ryan was enjoying himself. Carl seemed to be enjoying himself too, or at least, he looked like he was. Meanwhile, Nikita stayed home, alone. Her body was heavy with pregnancy, her legs tired. She no longer went out to parties, she just wanted to rest and wait for Kelsey May to arrive. No one knew that night would be her last. Around 3 in the morning on February 5th, security cameras captured a man walking through the Broadmead Park area. His steps were slow, unhurried. No one paid attention. Newport nights in February were cold and dark. Back at the party, Carl turned to Ryan and said he was going out to buy cigarettes. He left and never came back. Ryan didn't question it. Why would he? This was Carl, his cousin, his friend, his brother in everything but blood. He went out to buy cigarettes. Normal. Nothing about that night was normal. Inside flat number 51, Nikita Grender was asleep. She didn't hear the footsteps. Or maybe she did but didn't have time to react. She didn't know the person approaching was not Ryan. She didn't know the man standing outside her door had been obsessed with her for years. Had been planning this night longer than anyone could ever imagine. Kelsey May, the baby the whole family had been waiting for, was still inside her mother, safe, unaware. Just 2 more weeks. Early morning, February 5th. A neighbor living downstairs woke up at 5 a.m. to a faint beeping sound somewhere in the distance. She thought it was an alarm clock. She thought it was a phone. She went back to sleep. 7:30. The beeping was still there. But this time, there was a smell. Smoke. She stepped outside and looked up. Thick black smoke was seeping through the gaps of the apartment above. The fire had been burning for hours. Firefighters arrived. They broke down the door. They rushed inside. What they saw in that room, none of them would ever forget. On a scorched bed, surrounded by ash and smoke, lay Nikita Grender, 19 years old, 9 months pregnant. Her throat had been cut. Her stomach had been stabbed. And Kelsey May, the baby who never got to take a single breath, was gone too. Missy lay still, motionless. The person who did this had set the room on fire to destroy the evidence, to make sure no one would see her face one last time. Outside, among the gathering crowd of neighbors and onlookers, a 26-year-old man stood beside Ryan, watching the flames, waiting. That man was Carl Want. Detective Jeff Renane of Gwent Police stepped into the scene and immediately noticed the first anomaly. There were no signs of forced entry. The door wasn't broken. The lock was intact. Whoever entered that flat, Nikita had either opened the door for them or they had a key. This was not a stranger. This was someone she knew. The bed had been deliberately set on fire. The flames had started there, not an accident, not an electrical fault. Someone had tried to erase the evidence. But not everything was erased. Forensics found biological traces. This was not just a murder. The first person police focused on was Ryan Mays. By procedure, the closest person is always the first suspect. Ryan was the boyfriend. Ryan was the father of the unborn child. Ryan stood to lose or gain the most. He was brought in for questioning. He cried. He trembled. He couldn't control himself. Those who knew Ryan said, "That wasn't acting. That was real devastation." The police saw it too. But within the first few days, someone else walked into the station voluntarily. February 7th, 2 days after the murder, Carl Want appeared, saying he wanted to help with the investigation. He was calm, cooperative. He looked investigators straight in the eye and said he knew nothing. But there was something in the way he sat, the way his answers were too clean, too precise, too controlled, and far too emotionless for the death of a woman his cousin loved. Detective Renane made a note. February 9th. Carl Want was arrested on suspicion of murder. The first 6 interviews. Only one answer. No comment. Forensics did not give up. They searched Carl's car. Under the driver's floor, mat blood. On the steering wheel, DNA. On the handbrake, DNA. His jacket and t-shirt washed, but under luminol, they lit up like a night sky. Nikita Grender's blood. February 12th, exactly 1 week after the murder. Investigators placed the evidence on the table. Carl suddenly said he felt unwell and refused to answer further questions. That was the moment Detective Jeff Renane would later describe not with logic, but with certainty. We knew. We had known before, but at that moment, we knew for sure. That same day, Carl Want was formally charged with 4 counts: murder, destruction of an unborn child, rape, arson. He still did not confess. He never would. December 2011, nearly a year later, his lawyers finally presented a defense, and it was something Ryan Mays would remember for the rest of his life. Carl Want claimed that Ryan had allowed him to have sex with Nikita. Ryan heard it and said only one sentence: "You never touched my girlfriend with her consent." Carl Anthony Want, born July 1984, Betts, Newport.
He's got a history of problems at school, low educational attainment. He's got previous convictions for burglary. Want is a typical antisocial offender.
From the outside, a large man, former nightclub bouncer.
He spent a very short period of time in the army. He'd done the initial training and then had left. He was supposed to be a bodybuilder, but was unsuccessful really in that. And he was also portraying himself as this bouncer.
A role model to his younger cousin 10 years his junior. A familiar face in the neighborhood. From the inside, a man addicted to cocaine and steroids.
He was really going nowhere, doing nothing, short of money, and he was also taking drugs, big cocaine user, a lot of alcohol.
He was jealous of Ryan. Not because of money, because at 17, Ryan had everything he didn't: a home, a job, a beautiful girlfriend, and a child on the way. Carl looked at his cousin and saw everything he could never have.
His jealousy of Ryan's lifestyle was increasing, and he would become angry about that. Why has he got things I haven't got? Why does he seem happier than I am? Why can he be socially comfortable around people? Why can he get the beautiful girlfriend?
And he looked at Nikita, not his family. During interviews, he admitted, "Every time I wanted sex, I thought about Nikita. No shame, no regret." The signs had been there for a long time. Nikita had seen them. She hated Carl, and she didn't hide it. Once, she caught him going through her phone, searching for private photos of her and Ryan. She was furious.
Nikita had left her phone in the living room, and apparently he was looking through all of her photographs. He was obviously engrossed in these photos, and he was getting a bit of a kick out of it. So Nikita went mad, absolutely crazy.
Others around them noticed something wasn't right too, but no one did anything. No one said, "This is dangerous." On the night of February 4th, at the party, Carl looked around and realized no one was paying attention to him. Ryan was busy, laughing with others. Women showed no interest in him. Cocaine was running through his veins. The anger, the jealousy, and something darker than both. All of it reached its peak. He knew Nikita was home alone. "I'm going to get cigarettes," he told Ryan. That was the excuse. February 12th, 2011. The evidence was laid out on the table. DNA does not lie. Carl Want was charged. On January 18th, 2012, at Newport Crown Court, Carl Want stood trial for murder, rape, arson, and the destruction of an unborn child. When Want's DNA was found inside Nikita, his explanation became a final insult to his cousin Ryan. He claimed that he had taken part in a threesome with Nikita and Ryan the day before the murder. The prosecution presented the evidence piece by piece. DNA in his car, DNA on clothes he had tried to wash, blood traces beneath the floor mat. Security cameras placed him in the area at the exact time. 4 people had been seen walking around the neighborhood that early morning. 3 were identified and cleared. The 4th was Carl Want. Ryan Mays took the stand. He looked directly at his cousin and said, "You never had consensual sex with my girlfriend. Never." The jury needed just 4 hours. On February 22nd, 2012, Carl Want was found guilty on all charges against him. The judge described him as a calculating, vain, and devious individual, and sentenced him to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 35 years eligible for parole in 2047. But Want simply yawned and smiled. Inside the courtroom, Marcia Grender, a mother who had lost both her daughter and her grandchild in a single night, held tightly onto Paul. She couldn't speak. Only quiet, broken sobs filled the silence. The Court of Appeal later concluded, "This is clearly an extremely dangerous man. Justice had been served." But for Marcia and Paul, it filled nothing. They lived just a 5-minute walk from flat number 51. Years later, Marcia still refused to take that route. "I don't want to walk past there," she said. "I just don't want to." In 2015, the flat was demolished at the family's request. New homes were built, new families moved in, people who had no idea what had happened there. But Marcia knew. She began writing in a journal. Every day. Then, in 2016, she published it. The book was titled Nikita, A Mother's Story, not for fame, but because she needed the world to know who Nikita really was, not a victim in a news headline, but a real person, with real laughter, real dreams. "His name needs to be said," Marcia said about Carl Want, "so people know, and stay away from him if he's ever released."
I'm hopeful
that this conviction brings to an end one part of that process, although without doubt they will continue to mourn and grieve for Nikita and Kelsey May for the rest of their lives.
Every year, on February 5th, the family releases yellow balloons into the sky over Newport, the color of yellow roses, Nikita's favorite flower. At the Newport East Community Center, a mosaic of a yellow rose hangs on the wall created by children in the neighborhood, in memory of a young woman they never had the chance to meet. Nikita would be 33 this year. Kelsey May would be 13. Marcia says that sometimes she still sees young women walking down the street from behind, the way they walk, their hair, and for a moment, her heart stops. Then the girl turns around, and she knows again, all over again. It should have been her walking down that street, Marcia said. It should have been her pushing a stroller. Today, we're going to explore the haunting case of a beautiful young woman named Savannah Gold, a kind-hearted, hard-working girl who always put her family first. In the year 2017, in the state of Florida, Savannah Gold left home to head to the restaurant where she worked. Her mother, Sherry, had no idea it would be the last time she would ever see her daughter alive. About 1 hour later, Sherry received a call from the restaurant informing her that Savannah had never shown up for her shift. That was extremely unusual, because she had never missed a shift before. But what happened after that phone call was even stranger. When Savannah's father received a text message filled with spelling mistakes and missing punctuation, he immediately realized the sender was not his daughter. The message, sent under Savannah's name, claimed that she had met an amazing man, fallen in love with him, and decided to run away with him. It also promised that she would call later. Savannah's father, Daniel Gold, noticed not only the strange writing style, but also the content itself. He knew his daughter well enough to understand that running away with a boyfriend was something she would never do. As Daniel stared at the phone screen, desperately trying to make sense of what he had just read, Savannah's brother Chris received a similar text message. In it, Savannah claimed she was leaving with her boyfriend and that she was safe. Feeling that something was terribly wrong, Daniel immediately tried calling his daughter, but her phone was already turned off. Behind those strange messages sent to the family was a horrifying truth that would soon shock all of America. Savannah Paige Gold was born on April 26, 1996, to Daniel and Sherry Gold. She lived with her parents and her brother Chris in Jacksonville, Florida. She attended La Villa School of the Arts before later studying at Douglas Anderson School of the Arts. After graduating from high school, Savannah turned down a scholarship to the Savannah College of Art and Design because she wanted to care for her mother, who had been diagnosed with cancer in 2017. During Sherry's chemotherapy treatments, Savannah took on household responsibilities and did everything she could to support her family. Savannah also worked as a server at Bonefish Grill. The summer of 2017 marked exactly 2 years since she had started working there. On August 2nd, at around 5 o'clock in the evening, Savannah left home and drove to the restaurant. Her shift was scheduled to begin at 5:30 that evening, and she was already wearing her work uniform when she left the house. But less than 1 hour later, Sherry received a phone call from the restaurant asking if she knew why Savannah had not arrived for work. Her mother was shocked, because she knew her daughter was extremely responsible. She had personally watched Savannah leave the house in her uniform, meaning she was definitely on her way to work. Shortly after that call, Savannah's father and brother received the strange text messages. They immediately suspected that someone was pretending to be Savannah. Daniel quickly went to the police station to file a missing person report. Before that, he had tried calling his daughter many times, but none of the calls went through. Savannah was officially reported missing, and police immediately launched a search. After the text messages sent to her father and brother, her phone stopped working entirely, and none of her social media accounts were accessed again. The first thing investigators did was visit the restaurant where Savannah worked. In the parking lot, they discovered her car sitting with the door open, about 120 yards away from the entrance of the restaurant. Inside the vehicle were her identification documents, her wallet containing bank cards, cash, and several valuable personal belongings. To investigators, this clearly suggested that the story about Savannah running away with a boyfriend was completely fabricated. If she had truly wanted to disappear, she might have left behind her identification or bank cards to avoid being tracked. but she certainly would not have abandoned everything inside her vehicle. At first glance, there were no visible signs of a struggle or any obvious crime scene inside or near the car. However, officers noticed that the front left tire was flat. Forensic experts were called to the scene while detectives entered the restaurant to question Savannah's co-workers. Every single one of them confirmed that Savannah had never shown up for work that day and nobody had seen her. The fact that Savannah's car was parked about 120 yards away from the restaurant led detectives to believe that something had happened after she arrived at work. Police began checking nearby businesses, especially those with surveillance cameras, reviewing hours of footage in the hope of capturing the moment Savannah parked her car. Only one surveillance camera managed to record the location where Savannah's vehicle was found, and the image quality was far from clear. Even so, investigators were still able to see that after Savannah parked her car, she stepped out and walked toward a nearby vehicle. It was a silver Chevrolet Malibu. For approximately 14 minutes, Savannah stood beside the driver's side door, speaking with the person behind the wheel. Then she opened the rear door and climbed inside the vehicle. The driver also stepped out before getting into the back seat with her. Over the next few minutes, officers watching the footage noticed the car shaking violently. The rear door flew open 3 separate times, only to be slammed shut again immediately afterward. Police had reason to believe that a violent struggle had taken place inside the vehicle between Savannah and the owner of the Chevrolet. A few minutes later, the man stepped out of the car and walked over to Savannah's vehicle. He opened the driver's side door and removed something from inside. After that, he punctured the front left tire before returning to his own car and driving away. Savannah was never seen exiting that vehicle again. It did not take long for investigators to identify the owner of the Chevrolet Malibu. It belonged to Lee Rodarte, one of the managers and cooks at the restaurant where Savannah worked. Lee was a Florida native and had been employed at the Bonefish Grill location in the Mandarin area of Jacksonville for around 5 years. At 28 years old, Lee even helped hang missing person flyers featuring Savannah's face while police were interviewing restaurant employees. Lee claimed he had not seen Savannah in about 3 weeks because they had been working different shifts. But as detectives continued speaking with restaurant staff, they discovered that Savannah and Lee were far more than just co-workers. Several employees revealed that the two often spent time together outside of work and had been romantically involved, something Lee had completely failed to mention during his conversation with police. On August 5th, while working his shift at the restaurant, Lee was arrested and taken to the police station for questioning.
Hey, man. Good. You remember me from the other day? Detective Reeves? Okay.
Rodarte immediately told detectives that he struggled with reading and writing. Officers then carefully explained his legal rights, including his right to an attorney and the fact that anything he said could later be used against him in court. Lee admitted that he had previously lied to investigators when he claimed he had not seen Savannah for weeks. In reality, he had met with her on the very day she disappeared, but according to him, he was afraid police would suspect him in connection with her disappearance, so he chose not to tell the truth. Let's take a closer look at his police interrogation footage.
I've known her obviously since she started working there. I would say probably about 8 months ago or so, we started hanging out outside of work. And at the time I had a girlfriend, but we kind of connected, me and Savannah. So we hung out a little bit here and there, got pretty close. We come from, I guess, somewhat similar backgrounds, I guess you should say.
Okay.
She didn't have it the best growing up, neither did I. So we kind of connected and hung out for a little while. I'd probably say a period of 2-3 months.
Okay.
And then...
At the time, Lee was dating another woman named Chelsea. When Chelsea discovered that Lee had been cheating on her, she ended the relationship. According to Rodarte, he and Savannah had dated for around 3 months. But later, Savannah allegedly began using illegal substances, and he claimed that was the reason he ended the relationship with her and returned to Chelsea.
She started using drugs a lot.
Okay.
Now, I used them with her, not the same drugs that she used all the time, but I did them with her a couple times, and then she started to get heavy into him, and
gotcha. Okay.
So I kind of just tried to take a step back and put things off. And after that, me and my ex started kind of chit-chatting again.
Okay. And who's that? What's her name?
Her name's Chelsea.
Okay. All right.
So we kind of started chit-chatting again. Never really 100% because obviously, she was still kind of upset about me hanging out with Savannah and stuff like that.
He stated that the two had agreed from that point forward to keep their relationship strictly professional. The company that owned the restaurant prohibited employees from having romantic relationships with one another, and according to Rodarte, he believed Savannah had told other servers about their intimate relationship and was trying to get him fired.
And then when was the last time you saw her?
This is what I was a bit... I didn't tell you the truth when we talked about fish.
Okay.
Last time I saw her was Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
I heard that she has been basically telling a lot of people at work that we hooked up a bunch, like a couple of days before that, and that she was going to tell about the whole situation and try to get me fired. And
why would that get you fired?
I'm a manager and she's an employee. So.
Lee told detectives that on August 2nd, he drove to the shopping center to speak with Savannah and try to convince her to stop spreading rumors. He was terrified of losing his job at the restaurant where he had worked for 5 years. According to Rodarte, Savannah told him she had recently used a powerful stimulant and was feeling panicked and in pain. Because of that, she asked if she could sit inside his car for a while. Once Savannah got into the vehicle, Lee claimed he asked her to stop telling people that they were still dating. Savannah then told him to move into the back seat so they could talk privately. After the two moved into the rear seat, Lee continued pleading with Savannah to stop spreading rumors about their relationship. But according to him, Savannah replied that she would do whatever she wanted. That response, Lee claimed, made him furious. According to his statement, he then stepped out of the vehicle, slashed Savannah's tire, and returned to his car. Savannah allegedly asked why he had done it, and he answered that he was extremely angry. Next, according to Rodarte's version of events, Savannah stepped out of his vehicle and walked toward the entrance of the shopping center. But before reaching the building, she supposedly climbed into an old blue Ford pickup truck with dark-tinted windows.
And at that point, she had her phone in her hand, she got out of the car and walked towards the main entrance from San Jose.
Okay. Yeah, it's closer towards 295? Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't say she was walking along the edge of the plaza, but she was walking maybe towards this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say an older model Ford pickup, green.
Okay.
Drove past me and around, and she got in.
Okay.
But detectives already knew that Savannah had never stepped out of Rodarte's car, and Lee was lying. What he did not realize was that police already possessed surveillance footage proving that no blue Ford pickup truck had ever appeared, and Savannah had never left his vehicle. When investigators asked what happened afterward, Lee claimed he drove home and even provided detailed descriptions of the roads he had taken along the way. Detectives also noticed multiple scratches on his hands and neck. When they asked how and when he received those injuries, Lee claimed he had been hurt while working.
That was self-inflicted, actually.
Why?
I just have been having kind of a hard time.
To your neck?
I couldn't... Yeah, I did. And...
What did you use?
A knife.
When did you do that?
Sometime in July.
You did that in July and it's still...
Yeah.
Bloody?
Well, it's... I kind of peeled the scab here and there at work, hitting it on stuff like that. I peeled it last night working. And it was coming off a little bit today, so I peeled that a little bit.
Alright, let me see.
But this and this was the same night. This one was just a lot worse.
Yeah.
Than this one was.
Okay. And that was in July?
Yeah.
Okay. Like a few weeks back?
Yeah.
Okay.
When asked directly where Savannah could be found, Rodart replied that he did not know.
So where's Savannah right now?
I don't know.
Where would I find her?
I don't know.
That's my prime objective is to find her.
Definitely.
I think time's running out on her.
I understand.
I'm just laying out facts here. I want to find this girl. I need to find her.
I understand.
And here's a couple reasons I need to find her. One is I'm hoping that she's still alive. And that's really, I really do. I'm holding out for that. And if she's not alive, then I think she and her family are due that knowledge. I think I think they need some closure. Because I think the reality is if somebody's, dead somewhere, a parent would want to know. I think do you have kids?
No.
Okay. So one day when you have kids, the uncertainty is whatever kind of a person she is. And I'm not about to say what kind of a person she is. Because I'm not making any judgments. I'm saying that this human being is, if she's alive, then I want to find her. I need to make sure she's okay, because several days now she hasn't been around. Things happen to the human body, and people can't stand a lot of things that can transpire.
It's not true, because we have proof. We have proof, and that's why we're sitting here, Lee. At this point, we need this for her. I mean, I look at that little girl and I think of my little girl who's her age. That's who I think about. That was my little girl. I couldn't imagine. I don't care what she said about you or whatever, but my little girl is that age.
Maybe.
And you're not telling the truth.
Maybe something gets out of hand in the car.
I didn't do anything.
Okay, you didn't do anything, but she was in your car. She never got out of your car. She never got out of your car, Lee.
We're not saying that you did anything. I'm trying to find her. I didn't say you did anything. I don't know where
she is.
Well, we can prove that you left with her in the car.
Right here.
You thought you had her up here?
Yeah, I thought I had her like right here.
Yeah.
After leaving the parking lot, he took Savannah's phone, sent text messages to her father and brother, then threw the phone out of his car window. He brought Savannah's body back to his property and attempted to destroy the evidence with fire, but it was not nearly as easy as he had imagined. Afterward, he dug a hole and buried her body in the ground, but fearing that police would eventually discover the connection between him and Savannah and come searching his property, he dug the body back up the following day, wrapped it in a blanket, and drove to a pond located about 8 miles from the restaurant. He knew the area extremely well because he had lived there for many years. Once he arrived, he threw Savannah's body into the water and returned home. 3 days after Savannah's parents reported her missing, a homicide investigator arrived at their home and heartbreakingly informed them that their daughter had been found dead. Lee Rodarty was charged with second-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a human body. Due to the condition of Savannah's remains when they were recovered, forensic experts were unable to determine her exact cause of death. Her neck was not broken as Rodarty had originally claimed. Investigators also found no trace of illegal substances in her body. The thyroid cartilage in Savannah's throat had been fractured, indicating that she had been strangled. Approximately 75% of her body had suffered damage from the fire. Even after confessing during police interrogation, Rodarty still pleaded not guilty during court proceedings and claimed that he acted in self-defense.
I did a detailed dissection of the back of the neck as well, and I didn't find any hemorrhage or bony fractures or anything in the back of the neck either.
At that point, he changed his story once again, now claiming that Savannah had been the one who attacked him first and tried to choke him. By doing so, he forced Savannah's family to endure even more pain, as they were required to attend countless court hearings. Savannah's mother, Sherry Gold, later spoke publicly about the emotional toll the case had taken on the family.
My love for her is endless and boundless. The only way I can continue on is to know that the last thing she would want is for this to break us.
My cancer's come back twice, but chemotherapy, surgery, nothing's going to keep us from those hearings. We've been to 26 hearings. Out of the 27, we've had to be in the same room as the person that took our daughter's life.
Later, Lee Rodarty was offered a plea agreement. The condition was that he plead guilty to second-degree murder. In exchange, he would receive a 40-year prison sentence, while the charges of evidence tampering and abuse of a human body would be dropped. After consulting with his attorney, Rodarte agreed to the deal. On March 11, 2021, he officially pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Following the sentencing, Savannah's family expressed gratitude to everyone who had supported them throughout the painful journey.
I'm a little bit more of the mindset that I just want him to suffer forever. I don't want him to die. I want him to just suffer eternally. And it's still not enough.